So President Trump says that U.S. will escort and insure oil tankers amid this Iran conflict. How does that change the thinking, the wartime thinking for the Iranian military?
So that's certainly a complication. The Iranian Navy was always weak, and now, of course, it's even weaker. Some of its vessels have been destroyed. A lot of its missiles are and launchers are out of service. But at the same time, the Strait of Hormuz is a very narrow body of water. And Iran in the past has used mines, and now it has large, or at least relatively large numbers of drones it can use that can both serve to launch bombs, but also serve effectively as cruise missiles to go after ships. So this will be very difficult. The Navy, U.S. Navy has prepared for this for decades. It would be high risk for Iran, but there's also a genuine threat should Iran choose to do so.
And what is your assessment of the Iranian military retaliation so far? It's not completely defenseless, as you point out, but the overall consensus that I'm getting here is that it's been underwhelming to a degree. I know that it was broad, but what do you make of the strength of it?
So Iran's military was weak even before the latest rounds of conflict began several years ago. It is underfunded, corruption is high, there are leadership problems, there's limited training. Sanctions have meant that many spare parts for certain weapon systems are not delivered. And then add to that the significant destruction that happened to Iran's military in the 12-day war in 2025. And so this time around, there is something left. Iran, as you said, is not completely defenseless, but it's really one-sided. The United States and Israel secured air dominance within a couple days, and they've been able to go after a wide range of sites using lots of different platforms and have gone after many Iranian military leaders as well as weapon systems. So Iran can still strike back in a variety of ways, and we've seen that when it's attacked things like U.S. bases, or when it's attacked civilian facilities, hotels. But these are not powerful steps by a strong military. These are signs of desperation. The flip side, though, is Iran's on defense. And a lot of what the United States hopes to accomplish, like regime change, require more than just destroying Iranian missiles and destroying Iranian military facilities.
And of course, when it comes to these Middle East tensions or Iran conflict, the regular exercise is to look at oil infrastructure damage and proxy involvement for the market participants, at least. And one thing that stood out to a lot of people is the lack of involvement by the Houthis. What do you think why do you think that is? What is the calculus? Is it because they're engaged in another conflict that they don't really have the capacity to do it? Or do you think that shows their assessment of the Iranian regime?
So the Iranians and the Houthis have had a relationship for many years, and it really got stronger after 2014. But the Houthis have never done Iran's bidding the way, say, the Lebanese Hezbollah has. They're not that close an organization, and they have their own interests. And they struck a ceasefire deal with the United States last year, and so far they're not going after international shipping. I think they realize that it would be risky given the huge amount of U.S. military power in the area. At the same time, though, this is a question mark. The Houthis are certainly anti-American. And also, Iran is calling in all its favors. So the Houthis might join the fray at some point. But the good news is, for now, they're staying out of it.
Indeed. Let's hope it stays that way as well. Dan, I want to get your take on what folks are calling missile math, right? I mean, it seems like the president ought to have sort of a timeline with midterms coming up in November. He's not going to want to stretch this out too long, and he's going to want to wrap it up and potentially even get a deal on nuclear with the Iranians. The Iranians, though, and this is your expertise, right? They've got a very different plan. I think they're going to want to try and drag this out for as long as they can. And a lot of this has to do with inventories of missiles. Who has how much left, rather, the rate of fire, et cetera, and also how much these things cost. And right now, the cost-benefit analysis, I mean, the U.S. is losing. The Iranians are using, projectiles which cost just a fraction of what the U.S. is firing off.
So that's correct. And in addition to the cost of many air defense systems, the United States doesn't have that many. Although the President Trump said the United States has all the supply it needs, that is actually incorrect. On key systems like the Patriot or what's known as THAAD, the high altitude air defense, these systems only have limited numbers of munitions. U.S. allies want them. They're also wanted in Ukraine and Asia, of course. And Iran is firing very cheap systems that most of them are shot down. But even if a few make it through, that's often enough, as we've seen, to do considerable damage. The important caveat here, though, is that a lot of Iran's launchers and supplies are being destroyed on the ground by the U.S. and Israeli military. And in addition, even though the cost benefit or the cost ratios are skew in favor of Iran, the United States and its allies have a lot more money. So this long-term question is really a question mark in terms of how many reserves Iran has versus the supplies of the United States and its allies.